Hello fellow bikers and welcome to the Benelli Rider YouTube channel. What we're going to be doing today is we're going for a little bit of a ride out. It's just a little bit of a bimble like we usually do and a little bit of a chat. So today what we're doing is we're going out up into Glossop, and you pick it up here, actually in Glossop town centre. We've just gone past Tesco's and Argos, so if you want to follow us on Google Earth, put it up in the top corner of your screen. What you're looking for is Glossop town centre, and if you look, we are turning onto the B6105. So if you look for the B6105, that is the road we're turning onto as we come up to the set of traffic lights here. You've just seen the road sign for it. As we turn onto that road, we're going to be threading our way out. Here we go, around the corner. So we are now actually physically on the 6105, so it's B for Bertie 6105. So if you want to follow that up on Google Earth, so you can track where I'm actually going. What we're doing now is we're threading our way out of the back of the back of Glossop, and what we're going to be doing is going up into the countryside. There's some fantastic roads up here. Now everybody knows about Woodhead, everybody knows about the Snake Pass, but these are the roads that actually interconnect those two passes together, or like Glossop to Woodhead. So there's some fantastic roads, even better and more challenging than the actual passes themselves, and they seem to be like pretty much neglected. So what I'm going to do today is for you guys from all around the world, if you ever decide to come over to England and you decide to do Woodhead or the Snake Pass or a combination, Cat and Fiddle, some of the great roads round the Derbyshire countryside, just get in touch with me if you're coming over, and I'll quite gladly take you on a bit of a guided tour. And the rates are very, very competitive. Right, so while we're making our way out up towards the countryside, let's just have a little bit of a chat, as we usually do on these videos. And what I want to talk today about is the mentality, the mindset of the biker. I don't know about a lot of you lads and lasses out there, especially the ones that are my sort of age, in your mid to late 50s, or maybe possibly even your late 40s. I came back to motorcycling with the opinion that the bigger the bike, the better it was, and I sat with that mindset for, good God, best part of 20 years. As I came back to motorcycling, and I've had everything you could ever even imagine. R1s, Hayabusa, Bandits 1200, 1250, you name it, I've had it, and I've had all big bikes. The only small bikes I've ever had was when I was young, when I first passed my test. Like I say, we had Fizzy 50s, then I had a DT 125, then I had a DT 175, and then after that, after I'd passed my test, I had an RD 400, and it was just, they were all small capacity bikes. When you looked at a big bike then, you had the Z750, which was the old one, the old Z1000, a couple of the Hondas like the CX500 and other bikes of that sort of ilk that everybody looked up to, but all bikes were like smaller capacities. When I came back to biking, I thought I was playing it safe by buying a Virago 535, and well, it was about as soft and as safe as you could get, I suppose. And then as I progressed on from that, I actually got a next one after that I think was a GSX 750F, which was the old, what they call the teapot, and it had what I used to call the baboon's arse at the back of it. The light at the back looked like a baboon's bum. Anyway, moving on from that, like I say, every bike from that was a step what I thought was upwards towards 1000cc bikes, all the way up to, I've had Hayabusa, BMW 1300s, a couple of 1200s, a couple of 12.500s. I've had a lot of big bikes, and I thought big bikes are the way to go. It's what you want, and it is in a way. If you do touring, which is what we used to do, we only used to go once or twice a year, but we used to do a little bit of touring only around England, and this was with the biker lads. Obviously before that I was on my own. I used to do my own thing, I used to go all over the place, but when I was with the biker lads, it was always in the UK, Scotland a lot of the time. Really enjoyable. As you can see, we're now out on the open roads. and I hope you're enjoying watching that. I hope you're enjoying listening to me waffling. But we always thought big bikes were better, and everything that I've done today, what you'll watch today on this video, I could have done on the Hayabusa, the K1300S, or one of the 1200s, or the 4 Firestorms that I've had. The what was it, Mac 1000? I had an SV1000 with a TLR motor in it, absolute monster. But every one of those bikes, I could have done today's trip in second gear. I could have set off from the lights in second gear and never changed up or down, and done the whole ride today at the speeds that I've done it at in one gear. And that, I think, is the difference. It's the eye-opener for the smaller capacity bikes rather than the bigger capacity bikes. I just think they're far more engaging and they're far more entertaining to ride. I've actually come to the realisation after buying this Benelli that I've been missing out on something. And what I've been missing out on, and it's being pushed a lot more now, if you've noticed, there's a lot more 250s about, a lot more 350s, a lot more smaller CC motorcycles. Now, I know why the manufacturers are doing this. It's because they're being pushed by governments and by the world, by the people in grey suits, shall we say, to fetch the CC motorcycles down to reduce pollution, which is amicable in itself, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way. I see it as us having our freedoms being taken away from us without consulting us. Whether the proof's there or not, they need to convince us, they need to consult us, and there needs to be a vote on it. That is very, very unlikely to happen. Very unlikely to happen, because the world leaders will push through whatever they want to push through until there's a serious backlash or a serious rebellion by the people, which will come at some point or other, which may be very, very ugly, shall we say. But getting on with what we were talking about, because as you know, I always end up going off on a tangent. The smaller CC motorcycles, it's opened my eyes, because I would never have, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, definitely 4 or 5 years ago, I would not have contemplated having a 500cc motorbike. I would not have had any interest in it whatsoever. And I've got to be 100% honest with you, I think if I hadn't have had my knee operation, and it wouldn't have affected me the way that it has, because I can't ride a normal bike, because your actual leg goes underneath your bum, and as every bump that you go over, it smacks your knee up and down. Now, my knee, as a false knee, as a replacement knee, works really well, and I can bend it up there. But when it's being smacked and smacked as you're going over bumps, because obviously your backside is bouncing up and down and your feet are staying where they are, so it's like smashing up and down on your knee continually all the way through the ride. And on the K1300S, I bought the peg lowering kit. Made a difference, but not enough of a difference so I could ride a bike for a long time. And I went looking, I looked at a Royal Enfield. Again, your feet are further forward but underneath you. I didn't want a cruiser, for the simple reason is you can't lean them, you can't ride them, they're not, it's too much restriction on it, because I'm a sports bike rider and I like leaning it over, and I like giving it some, I like making good progress, shall we say. And that just wasn't possible on a VL800 or a VL1100, because the tyres are as wide as a car tyre, so they don't handle the same. They don't handle the same as a sports bike. And it was just an absolute coincidence that I was looking, like I say, for a Royal Enfield Interceptor 650, thinking about what I could do with the pegs on it, and I was just fancying something retro. 650 would probably be about the smallest CC motorcycle that I would have entertained in any way, shape or form. And then I just happened to come across a YouTube video where the 500C was being reviewed, and when I looked at it I thought, that is one dandy looking motorcycle, because I do love the Ducati DeVille, or Devil, or whatever you want to call it, DeVille, or I don't know, however you want to pronounce it. I call it a Ducati DeVille. And I like the look of that, because when you sat on it, it looks like you're hovering above the bike, because of that back mudguard piece that sits on the actual back of the bike. It makes it look, or should I say around the back of the wheel, it makes it look like you're hovering above it, so it looks a little bit Star Wars-ish, if you know what I mean. And when I looked at the Benelli and I saw this review and I saw the chap riding it, I thought, that has got the look that I really like. And then getting further into that, and that obviously upped me to actually watch the full review. And when I watched the full review, I thought, feet forward, but the pegs are high up off the floor, so you can crank it right over. Because this was an Australian fella, I think, the first one that I watched, and he was saying that he'd done the test on it and he'd had it bouncing off the ABS. He'd been backing it into corners, and I just thought, nah, you're talking wet. But then when I actually watched the video and watched it all the way through, what he was saying was absolutely true and correct. And he said that the 47... so we've just come up to our left turn now. So we're turning left now onto the A628. That's the A628 if you're following it on Google Maps. And this is about the bottom third going back towards Manchester with the Woodhead Pass. So that's the A628. And that's what you're looking for, the A628. Emptying from the B6105. So if you look there, you'll see we've just turned left and we're threading our way back down now. If you look on the map a little bit further towards Mottram in Longdendale. So we'll be going through Mottram in Longdendale, straight away through the centre, get out the other side, and you'll see a roundabout in the M67. So we'll be joining the M67 probably in about 6 or 7 minutes time. Right, now let's get back to talking about what we were talking about before. We were on the Ducati DeVille, we were talking about the Benelli 502s. Review, I thought, feet forward, but the pegs are high up off the floor, so you can crank it right over. Because this was an Australian fellow, I think, the first one that I watched, and he was saying that he'd done the test on it and he'd had it bouncing off the ABS. He'd been backing it into corners, and I just thought, nah, you're talking wet. But then when I actually watched the video and watched it all the way through, what he was saying was absolutely true and correct. And he said that the 47 brake horsepower and 45.5 newton meters of torque sort of like don't really explain, or they don't really ring true to the way the bike actually performs when it gets up in the revs. And I was just sort of like really intrigued. So I went and watched probably another 50, like you do. You get a bike, you start to fall in love with it, you like the look of it, because I love that headlamp on it. That headlamp on it looks absolutely awesome. And then you've got the big tank, the big imposing tank. Now a lot of people say, oh, I don't like a big tank, but it suits the bike, it looks right on the bike. And the fantastic thing with the tank is when you get in, I mean now I'm realistically getting 68 to 70 to the gallon out of it, and I don't hang about. I ride a bike the way that it should be ridden. Not stupid, not crazy, but I do actually ride a bike, and I like to run it through the gears. I like to run it up on the revs, and it does. It's quite easily, right on the pessimistic side, hitting 65 to the gallon. So that sort of MPG on a 21 litre tank, I'm getting the best part. If I treat it nice, if I'm on a motorway run, I can get almost 400 miles to a tank of fuel. Riding it round and up and over Woodhead and what have you, I'm probably doing 335, 350. So I just think it's just unbelievable. That's absolutely unbelievable fuel economy. Anyway, we were talking about small capacity bikes. What I find about the small capacity bikes, I've not tried a 250 because I think that would be too much work, if you know what I mean. It wouldn't have the get up and go that I would like. But the great thing about the Benelli is because it's 500cc, it's got the get up and go, but you've got to use the gears. If you want to make good progress on it, like if you go back and have a look in the archives, you might have already seen it, keeping up with the 1000cc super bikes. And on a, don't get me wrong, on the straight, they'll pull away from me. Not like zoof off into the distance, they'll gradually pull away from me. But through the corners, not a one of them can get away from me on it. It's just absolutely, the handling on it is unbelievable. Anyway, we've come all the way through the run all from Glossop all the way over where you watched it, where we turned left and we were queuing. We've now turned back onto, here we are, the A628, which is the Woodhead Pass, and we're on our way back down into Mottram in Longdendale now. We'll be going through Mottram in Longdendale, through the centre, over the top onto the motorway and back into home. So yeah, I find the 500cc Benelli really engaging to ride. Now, whether the TRX is going to be the same because it's a more of a Tirali orientated motorcycle and the tyres are not the same, I don't think you'd be able to lean it the same or really basically chase the speed the same way as you can on the 502c. The Leoncello, I'm going to get these teeth in, I'll break these teeth in for my gran at some point. You've got the 500cc Leoncino, and now you've got the 800cc Leoncino and the TRX. Hopefully I'm going to try and get in touch with Robinsons of Rochdale, and I'm thinking of starting doing a few more motorcycle reviews for you. Now if you think that would be something that you'd be interested in and something that you think I should have a go at, then please like, subscribe underneath and leave us a big comment. Just put a comment down saying, yeah Dave, do us some more reviews, that sort of stuff. Then what I can do is I can go to Robinsons and see if they will loan me some bikes or give me some demos for demonstration purposes. Hopefully I'll be able to keep them for a couple of days so I'll get a better idea of them than just riding them up and down for a couple of hours, if you know what I mean, because it's alright, you can get out into the countryside from Robinsons quite easily. It's about a 10 or 15 minute ride into the countryside, so it's not a problem. But it's better if you've got it for 2 or 3 days or even a week, you've actually got an idea of what it's like to live with. And I'd prefer to do that type of review than one where you just go out and tell you what colour the bike is, what colours they do, what weight the bike is. I'd rather go through it all and tell you what it's like to live with, because I think that is better information than being 100% accurate on the brake horsepower or 100% accurate on the torque. I think a lot of bikers out there, we're a little bit like football and the statistics. The statistics are there, but they don't really tell a true story. They don't tell 100% of a proper story about whatever vehicle it is that you're buying, because you can have a vehicle that's got a lower brake horsepower but has lower weight, which means it's got a bigger brake horsepower per ton than one vehicle to another vehicle, and the two vehicles are very, very similar to drive, and sometimes the one with the lower cc and the lower brake horsepower is actually the faster car. Caterhams, to start off with, that's one great example, is the Caterhams, the Ariel Atoms, and that's why they're built like that. The smaller capacity engines with smaller cc, but they actually perform better than a bigger car because of the weight difference. So anyway, now what we're doing is we're coming down towards the bottom of Woodhead, back in towards Mottram, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go quiet now for a few minutes till we get back towards the motorway and give your ears a rest, right? So catch you up in about 5 or 10 minutes. so here we are coming through Mottram Lights. So we're coming through Mottram Lights, Mottram in Longdendale. So we've gone through those lights and now we're heading towards the motorway. You'll see coming up on the left hand side shortly the 2 petrol stations, which are really good if you're going to base yourself. If you look at the, again on Google Earth, if you're going to come over here or you're going to come up here to stop for a couple of days or a day to do some riding, fantastic hotel here at the roundabout. It's a Premier Inn. It's, I won't say cheap as chips, but it's cheap enough, and you've got 2 petrol stations there, so you can fill up either on the way out for your ride in the morning or on the way back after your ride at night time. The Premier Inn at Hyde, it's actually Costa's Premier Inn Hyde, is on this roundabout that we're coming up to now, and it's actually got a restaurant attached to it and an hotel and a McDonald's, so it's a really good place for bikers to stop. You've just seen the 2 petrol stations there. We're coming up and you'll have noticed in the top left hand corner that we've changed the view. What I've done is I put a camera just behind the back foot peg, so you could see how far over you can actually lean this bike. Being a cruiser and feet forward, as you can see, my feet are forward but they're a long way off the floor, and you can really crank this bike over. So here we are, we're coming up behind these cars on the roundabout. We've got one here who's indicating he takes the right hand lane, which he shouldn't have done really. He should have took the left hand lane for the left hand lane on the motorway. But a lot of drivers, especially amateur drivers who just drive cars, you can't really expect any different from them. Here we go, going over now. Look how close that my foot is to the floor there. That aero blob was just about grinding on the floor. And you can see the way that I accelerated through the bend. The actual handling on the bike is absolutely superb. I cranked it over, had it right over so the peg was virtually touching the floor, and the throttle 3/4 of the way open coming off there. And now what we're doing is we're just going to cruise down the motorway till we come off at junction 1, and then we're going to thread our way back into our house, and that'll be the end of today's ride. Right, so here we are, turning right into my street. Well, not my street, the one just before my street. As you can see, we've got a cyclist in front of us, so it's always best to err on the side of caution. I could have gone zipping past the outside of him if I wanted to, but just give him the space and the time. And there we go, we're coming up the hill now, past, as you can see on the left hand side there, that is Hyde Police Station, just round the corner from my house. Right, so folks, we're home. So thanks for watching the Benelli Rider YouTube channel. I hope you've enjoyed today's ride. I hope you've enjoyed today's copious amounts of waffle, and if it's the type of thing that you like on the channel, if you like to listen to me have a bit of a talk about things, and if you want to hear some of my biking stories from years gone by, then just again let me know in the comments below. Don't forget, a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, very, very important, and leave some comments. And here we are, back at home. Right, so thanks very much for watching the Benelli Rider YouTube channel, and don't forget, biking is all about enjoying the ride and enjoying your machine. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.
We're on a track day at Cadwell Park here. That's me coming over the mountain on the back wheel. It was taken some years ago, from the beginners with the yellow jackets on into the intermediate. Now watch the old wheelie. This is the pair of us, me and Marco, formation wheelie in. There's me and Marco down the back straight. There's me overtaking him. And on a production machine. The lad in front of me in yellow, he was on a race prep bike. That's me going over the mountain again on that wheel. Here's me again, into and over the mountain. Second gear, into third gear, line the power on, and away you go.
And some distance there.